Hello, I'm Carl and welcome back to Munro Live. Today we're going to be speaking about the interior from the Mercedes EQS. Now this is a vehicle that is priced out at $135,000, which is just above the Model S that we had torn down. There are some concept differences between the two of them though. When we looked at the Model S, we saw that on the interior features, they focused on simplicity. They actually were able to remove content but maintain a premium price. The Mercedes did not do that. They have all of those features and they have all of that trim detail that some people would expect in a vehicle of that price point. So let's go ahead and look through this and see what stands out and what we find noticeable about it. Now, some people would always laugh at a white or a cream interior. Honestly, I love the color scheme. This is exactly what I wanted to do in my 61 Cadillac that I was working on, but I decided to go original. So we have a lot of mixtures of materials. We have leathers, we have wood, we have some vinyls, and then we have some injection mold. When we looked at the door on the Model S, that door was wrapped all the way down. We have a wrapped top pad, we have a wrapped medallion area, we have a wrapped armrest. But this is all in mold material. Hard components, but yet soft touch. And that continues up across to the front. So we have layers of materials, we have differences in materials, maintaining that premium look. Look at this wood grain here. Consider the back of a classic boat. That is what we are seeing in this design. There are a lot of features. All of the jewelry is in place within this vehicle. Nothing was really simplified, nothing was cut out, nothing was eliminated in its design. We have this weird protrusion onto the front of the IP. Now this is what's lifting us up to raise to the height of the IP, but yet it's creating this big inset cavity. All right, so what was the reason for that? More than likely, it's because of the exterior body lines needing to be below where they were meeting at the IP, so that was just an angled fill-in. Really take a good look at the perforations in the seat. You'll notice something. Rather than just having a perfed center section, those perforations get larger and smaller. They are varying in their design and shape, and they also match the stitching pattern. Those perforations are laser cut, and it's very, very tricky because it must be sewn correctly to have the proper offset to all of the laser pattern, and each and every perforation is in its own designed position. So you're not just buying perf material off of a roll, cutting it, and installing it into this vehicle. Notice the lighting. The entire vehicle has different trim lighting. In the door panels, recessed behind the switch panel on the door. Across the top of the IP, recessed behind the screen in the IP. In the storage bin area, recessed again, showing through from its upper console. And even in the seat back trims. So they've put that lighting everywhere. However, do you like the color? The varying from the blue to the red or purplish. I think that would be very, very subjective. It would be a certain type of person that wants that color in their vehicle for the entire time that they're owning it. Now look at the displays. We have 3 main display areas on the large front screen. But look, that display is actually suspended in space away from the IP. It's not a recessed display. Now, and I'm trying to think about this and figuring out what I like. And I've come to the conclusion that you have to think of it the way you would think of art. For me, I do not like abstract art. I do not like impressionist art. I prefer art that shows off a technical skill. When I'm looking at something like this, technical skill is what I see everywhere. In order to have an A-surface quality that wraps around the edge, that takes a lot of thought. All of these interfaces, the way they create that premium look and that premium feel going everywhere and into every pocket, that is technical skill. They're not cutting corners literally in the materials. So that's something that I think that is very appreciative of me. I really value that skill. We have Alcantara or synthetic suede headliners, B-pillars. Not anything unique. A lot of premium vehicles, that is the type of material that they would choose. So here we are on the passenger side, and you'll notice that the screen just turned on when I sat down. The screen is not activated when I'm just in the driver's seat. All right, so what do we have here? So as we're here, we have some options for the passenger. You have your own navigation, phone, media, apps. Okay, want to play Sudoku while you're in the passenger seat? That's kind of fun. I don't know what all features would be turned on or what all features are possible within this vehicle. But again, this screen dedicated specifically to the passenger. So we have our center console. Very nice, clean lines when everything is closed. The stitch lines match up nicely. And this is something that's very, very important. Whenever a stitch line and a stitch line need to match up, they must come over an edge in a 90-degree angle. Must be perpendicular to the edge. Otherwise, the stitching will always look hooked. And a lot of times when I've been working with people in styling, they always want it to come over on some sort of a curve, and it messes everything up, creates poor quality, and you have to plan that from the very beginning. So very, very simple design, clean design. It works, it lines up because they go over off on a perpendicular. That wood grain continuing, again, looking like the deck of a nice boat. Slides up opening. We have our cup holders, nice storage, USB, but this is rubber and hard plastic. It's not a flocked interior bin. I've had a lot of customers on the high end that whenever we had an interior bin like this, the first thing they would ask me to do, well, can we wrap that in leather? Well, technically you can do anything, but it's going to cost you an awful lot of money and you're going to have quality issues. So then they would want to flock it. All right, flocking is very, very nice. However, think about this. Would you ever want flocking in an area that you're going to have a cold cup of some sort of a drink that's going to be sweating water down inside of that storage bin? I don't think that I would. So I think leaving this hard plastic is still very appropriate. So into the armrest. Nice big open bin. A while ago, I was going to buy a new car. And when I would walk up to the vehicles, the salesman would always want to walk over to that front door. They would open it. I would ignore them. I would go to the back seat. I would open the door. Well, then that would actually make them mad. Because what they would do is they would always take the front seat and move it all the way back to show you how much legroom that you had. Now, I'm a big guy, and many of my friends are big guys. So I would purposefully go to the rear seat. I would open the door, and then I would climb in without readjusting the front seat that they had adjusted all the way forward. The salesman would get mad. He would look at me and say, well, you're not going to be riding back there. But it was important to me that if I am driving a car, that my friends would be comfortable any place within my car. The amount of room, the amount of leg room, the comfort here is fine. For me, the headroom is a problem, however. My head and hair is well within and touching onto the roof. I don't like that. I would prefer more headroom. It changes the aerodynamics of the vehicle, which a lot of these vehicles, especially with electric vehicles, they're really working within that aerodynamic range that gives them the most vehicle range as possible, but it just bothers me. It almost would make sense to have the seat sit a little bit lower. you'll notice that in some vehicles, the rear seat, the cushion of the seat basically sits right on the floor. This one is very, very tall in comparison. So if they would have been able to sink that seat down a little bit, I think I would have more headroom that would really make me feel better. Okay, so there was one feature that I was kind of laughing at a little bit, and it happens to be these fabric wrapped pillows on the headrests. You'll notice that this is just a loose fill fabric bun that is attached into the headrest itself. This is a removable component, so you could take them out if you did not like them. It looks bad in my mind. If I look at that sticking off the front of my seat, it looks unfinished. It looks like it was an afterthought. However, it is very soft. And I do have to admit that it is quite comfortable where it is sitting. I don't like it. I think that it would get incredibly dirty, especially being a white fabric. The white leathers and vinyls are much easier to clean, but it's an interesting feature, but removable if you don't like it. So when we were talking about the yoke and we were talking about the steering from the Model S, the one thing that we did mention was in the Model S's steering wheel yoke, there was no hand stitching. When they had wrapped that component, they did a tuck, so it did not have this hand stitch seam here. You have to really select your materials very well in trying to hand stitch a seam closed. And the one thing that I want to point out is right here, you can actually see the threads already fraying in this hand stitch seam. And this vehicle has 213 miles on it. These threads will wear if you've selected the wrong type of material or if you had any problems in the sewing process that caused those threads to tear. Most people, they would probably never notice. That will just wear down over time. You won't see it, or it might continue to fray. When we were talking about the air vents on the Model S Plaid, we had mentioned the fact that they did not have any A-surface controls. The controls were all done by the center display or the control panel here. And it had two air curtains that would blow by in opposing directions that would actually change the velocity and direction of the air coming out. This does have a fixed, well, not fixed air vent, but it has a permanent air vent that has all of your controls built into it. Now, this I think is more of a style question. You're paying for the component where they did not have to pay for the component in the Model S. All right, so we have the component. They have put a lot of effort into stylizing this component. All of that effort is money, 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 money. However, where is the benefit of that money? If I'm the purchaser and I paid $135,000 for the vehicle, I, in my mind, would say I paid for that design, I paid for that component, I paid for all of the artistry behind it. If you're the Model S buyer and you paid $131,000 for the Model S that we tore down, you do not have that component. So you paid for the simplicity of design. If you are the buyer, which one do you value? So, for the seat in general, it is a comfortable seat. But how much movement do we have within the seat? The seat controls are on the door. It can slide back, it can tilt, you can adjust your headrest, but there is a very low height range. Right now I have this seat set as far low as it will go. I can just clear the headliner. I would actually prefer this seat to be slightly lower. I would kind of like to have my view in the middle of the windshield, and I'm more at the top. A wider range of movement in the seat I think would have been nice. For me personally, I like that range. Now there are a few things about that. The seat structure. Let's go ahead and... So within the seat structure, we have a lot of times where customers will want to take a structure which is completely covered and carry it over from one vehicle to the next. So if this structure was designed for a smaller vehicle, it normally would be farther to the floor, which would not allow you as much travel. If they had to raise this structure at all to fit it into a larger vehicle, whatever they did to raise it is no longer within the adjustment, so it cannot go any lower. You'll notice underneath the front center console, there is a storage bin that is exposed on both sides. Now, some people would look at that and say, yes, that's a great storage idea. It's a great storage location. Others would look at that and say, what a waste of space. Why didn't they just make the bin deeper? But think about this. Many, many years ago, I was working within a research group, and one of the projects I was trying to work on was purse management. There were a lot of women who were complaining that there was not a location in their vehicle to store their purse. Now, here is the requirement that they gave. I had actually joined some online purse forums and talked with a bunch of women saying, what do you want in your vehicle? What do you want for your purse? First off, you would have some people that would pay $500 to $1,000 for a purse. They would want to protect that purse. If you set it on the driver or the passenger seat, and you hit the brakes, the purse goes flying, it can get scratched or damaged. So they want to protect that investment. The next, they wanted that purse to be stored in a way that they had access, that they could get into it if they needed to. So this compartment right here, if you were to set a purse in there, you do have some limited access. You could reach in, grab something out if you needed to. That is not a feature that would apply to everyone, but some people would find a feature like that very beneficial. In sitting in the back seat, we have our climate controls right here in the rear of the front center console. But again, since this seat is set so high in the vehicle, that control is completely outside of my reach. If I was wearing a seatbelt and had to lean this far forward to run these controls, it's fairly uncomfortable. But what are the solutions for that? You would either have to lift the entire center console to present something that I could actually function. You would have to lower this seat to make it easier for me to reach. You could possibly get rid of legroom, having to move the seat farther forward or moving the console farther rearward. Or you could put the controls in a fixed location which prevents any type of center seat occupant. So it seems to me like it's the best of a bad situation. So have you ever gotten into your vehicle at night and had trouble finding your buckle? Look at that, a light up ring around the seat buckles. So this vehicle, for the seat back panels, we do see the light pipe, which is integrated into the back panel itself, and we see the mat pocket. We were having a discussion in the other vehicles about, is that mat pocket a feature benefit? All right, so in the Tesla Model S Plaid, there is no mat pocket in the back panel. The question is, what are you actually putting in that mat pocket? Do you have to have a mat pocket? Tesla saved money by removing the mat pocket. Well, you paid $135,000 for a car. You're getting this feature because you paid for it. Whether you use it or not is on you. This is actually a deploying mat pocket. A lot of room. Elastic straps built into the seat itself. So for a mat pocket, this gives you a lot of storage room compared to most that we've seen. So we were mentioning all of the control panels in this vehicle and how all of the screens are actually floating. The control panel on the doors are floating away. Even the map light has a floating reveal around its perimeter. To have such a small feature taking that type of a look and execution and putting it throughout this vehicle, that's very unique. It's very expensive. But if you paid $135,000, you're paying for it. In looking at the rear cargo area, of course, this is a hatchback. So with it open, you have a lot of access and a lot of room. I don't know how much you're hauling things in a Mercedes, but luggage, anything would be easy to get in and out. Looking at the materials, we have carpet wrapped load floor, carpet up to the side, and then going into just an injection molding component going above. We do have a storage bin underneath the load floor, but compared to the size of this compartment, I think this is a rather small storage bin. Real metal trim scuff plates. So this is a somewhat interesting feature, and it's something that I have not quite figured out why it works or what you would need. But the button that controls the rear hatch, I can open the hatch. So that's fully open. I can close the hatch partially. So if I were going to Home Depot and I was purchasing something that did not fit in my car, I could load it, I could close the hatch partially, and it is now in a locked, fixed position, leaving whatever I purchased sticking out the back. Who's doing that in a $135,000 Mercedes? I'm not entirely sure. I have put 10-foot lumber in my Cadillac. So I don't know if this feature is appropriate for the vehicle, but it is a nice feature to have a rear hatch that will lock in an intermediate position. Thank you very much for watching Munro Live. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough of this Mercedes EQS, something that we got on loan to see what we liked about it or what we didn't. I hope you do subscribe if you are not subscribed, and stick around and watch the next videos. Thank you very much.